Welcome to the channel. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. So join me today for a long extended video because we're going to be doing a triple unboxing, but not only an unboxing, I'm going to give you 3 mini reviews on these 3 watches that I have. We're still in time for the 11/11 sale, and today I do think I've got some special pieces here that you will like. So we are going to start with the cheapest option but with proven build quality, and of course it's going to be a Watchdives. So this is the WD 1960S, the Pioneer version 2, and this is homaging the Ranger. And if you remember, maybe just last year we had a bunch of Ranger homages hit Aliexpress. I just noticed this watch a couple of weeks back, and 2 things really stood out, and one was obviously the price. This is £60 on their website. That's right, just £60. And I think the only other best watch for that kind of money was a Steel Dive 6105. Secondary to the price is of course the finishing and case design. You've got the curved edges of that crystal combined with that button type bezel. It gives it a really lovely vintage pop, and the execution of the finishing is super. You've got circular brushing on that bezel with a slither of polishing just around the lip, and along the sides you've got a sharp bevel again with that mirror polishing. And just take a look at how crisp those lines are between the brushing and the polishing. Definitely indicators of superior build quality. Now, I don't know if you guys are tired of hearing this or seeing this, but the value you get for such an insanely low price is absurd. And even for such a low price, you still get impressive attention to function with those female end links, and you also get screw-in links. For £60, that is ridiculous. And the finishing is still consistent with super soft linear brushing, a very high quality look and feel in the hand, and you've got a functional and highly finished clasp with polished bevels, plenty of micro adjustments, and of course milled internals. These guys don't skimp on precision at all. A telltale of cheap watches is loose fitting parts and misalignments, but look how tight these end links are with very even gapping. Now, my favourite part has to be the dial. I went for the Sunray Brown, embellished with the gilt of the markers and handset. Now, brown dials are my default to go to if available. Now, they've also got another 3 variants: the more vintage printed dial with 14 markers, now a black dial version with applied markers, and a blue sunray, which is very vibrant. The lume is also very decent. It makes you question how they can do this. We just saw a £100 Wish Deutsch, which is a third of what this watch is in build quality. So it's not always about buying the most expensive when something so cheap can keep up with watches worth hundreds, and that's just facts. And on wrist, of course, it fits great. Yes, it is for smaller wrists. It fits and looks fantastic. You get so many boxes ticked, and we know they use the Seiko VH31 hybrid quartz movement, which means the watch is thin and it's at under 11mm. Also, the brown dial with the gold just pops. Now let's keep moving and switch over to the next new watch I've got to show you. The next one we have is another niche Aliexpress brand called SH Watch. They've got quite a small catalogue, but they got some really great value and great built watches. This is the new release, the S2311. It's a contemporary sports watch with great value and a great movement. This is just £125 with a Miyota 9015 movement. Now, isn't that just crazy? We've just looked at the Watchdives Explorer homage, which was £144 with the Miyota 9000 series. Now, what doesn't make sense is that we can now get Miyota 9000 movement watches cheaper than we can get with the NH35. How is that even a thing right now? So the usual specs with this, but there's something which caught me off guard with this, and it's almost exclusive to Chinese brands when this happens. The one I've got in hand is a quartz one with the VH31, and it's not available on the website. Well, at least I can't find it. So when I spoke to them, they said they've got a quartz one that you can pick if you change locations to EU, and I don't even know how to do that, so we're gonna forget about that. I mean, why would you even look at a quartz option when you can get Miyota 9000 for just £125? So we're going to ignore that this is a quartz watch just for this review, and the only potential difference is on the thickness. This is 9mm thick, and on the listing for the automatic with the Miyota it says 9.7, which is still well under 10mm. Now on the watch, this is predominantly brushed, again with high quality of finishing. It's got slightly coarser grain of linear brushing across the A-face and razor sharp clean cut transitions into the polished 12-sided bezel, and then you've also got some softer brushing on the lugs as well as the case sides, and you can see the brushing is throughout on the sides of the bracelet and also along the whole A-face of the bracelet with some polished bevels on either side of those links. Now always look for crisp defined transition lines which I deem as a high standard of finishing and consistency. Now the bracelet is quite decent too, H-link design. The finishing is great overall on the links, but you do have a butterfly clasp. While it has a decent outer construction, I'd say the inner does feel like those cheaper butterfly clasps. And the caseback looks to be a press-on caseback, which is why you've got that water resistance that you have. And also quick release bars on the bracelet. The dial work is simple but effective. I think it's a clean, sporty aesthetic. You've got two dial options, the ice blue and a grey. Both are sunburst. You've got polished applied markers and polished and well finished hands with some micro detailing in the center. Zoom is very decent too, definitely in line with the sports watch expectations. So the fit on wrist is good. It's 39mm, of course, proportionate lug to lug. And I like that simple Genta type design because it also has that presence on wrist, but that soft linear brushing all over the watch face, minimal polished details, particularly on that bezel, which does make that bezel pop on certain angles, and a simple, clean overall aesthetic. And obviously it's extremely well priced and specified new release from SH Watch. Now, if you really wanted that quartz version, I don't know how you go about getting it. If you manage to find it, please let us know in the comment section below. The only thing I could find was the one with the Miyota 9000 series at £125, which still makes it a ridiculous deal. Now for the last one, I do need to hype it up a bit. It's a new release by HHX Watch Store, the guys that bought us the best high-spec Nautilus homage and the Cartier homage. Now they've got a couple of brands, Rokaty, which is probably their least favorite, and then you've got Eniton, which is not too bad as a branding, but they give you rep level watches, and if you know, you know. So this is the new release. It's got a fantastic movement and a very popular design. This is the new model, the S1083. It's a 38mm automatic chronograph in the shape of an overly recognizable style of watch. What we do know so far from these guys is that the expectations should be fairly high. You get high case quality. Like I said, it is at the rep level with very good specs and still great value for money. Now first, let's take a look at this 38mm. This is why I really wanted to see this. This particular style of watch, especially being the chronograph, is quite big. And the non-chrono version that Eniton did was still around 41mm, which was great, and it still had plenty of presence. Now one of the things which does stand out is the in-hand feel. The watch still has impressive presence, and in hand it feels like a proper, well-made and solid watch. This case has precision. Every facet and angle features a polished bevel with razor edge precision all over. The brushing is very consistent on every surface, and it emphasizes that impressive case build, that faceted aesthetic, along with the features that you get of this particular design. The polished edges also flow down from the case all the way down to that bracelet, which does give the watch impressive light play. Now I think with something like this, only when you really get it in hand can you truly appreciate the impressive build and finishing, especially if you have had those cheaper versions which don't really cut it. But we can see a mix of finishing on the watch, satin brushing along the side profile, and as I said, that coarser grain, which does emphasize certain features, industrial look if you do like this particular type of design, and just the overall build quality is very impressive. So much precision here, so much attention to detail, everything fits perfectly. Now function is equally as important. So this watch features a movement which I've been wanting to experience for a while. And the movement was announced a couple of years back, I think, and it did create a bit of a buzz. It is an upgrade to the 7750 clones that we see on the Suggest, for example, and the Suggest later version now also uses the SL4801 by Peacock. So if you're interested in movements, it's worth digging into this movement, and I'm sure people will let us know more in the comment section. So basically, it is a column wheel automatic mechanical movement, beat rate of 28,800 vibrations per hour. It has that tri-compact design, and this one is running perfectly on the time grapher. Now let's press those buttons. Yeah, very positive tactile click. The pause isn't as nice as the initial press to get the chronograph started. Yeah, that's a lot more positive when you press it again. And then the reset snaps back. Now with this being a higher beat movement, when you look at the running seconds at the 6 subdial, you get an even smoother sweep than you do with a lower beat movement. Now the watch also features slim, well-finished polished hands, slick baton indices with equally great polishing. Now on the caseback, you also have a screw-down caseback with circular brushing, and it seems that this is a limited edition. So you've got pink from the colorway and number 3 out of 25. So potentially there's 25 of each color. Now, in terms of colors, you have a range of eye-catching colors like this purple. You've also got a teal, and then some more understated options like the white and black. Now, as far as this dial goes, it's got that waffle dial texture. Now, in terms of depth, it's deep, but perhaps I would like just probably a bit more definition on this. But the waffle design is clearly visible. You also got that silver applied logo, which is quite small, and in the background a little bit, you've got that minute track and just those sub dials with those concentric silver rings. Now the lume is also pretty decent. The handset is solid, very bright, but you've got slightly duller lume on the markers, and the small sub-dial hands are also lumed. Now one thing we have to look out for here is alignment. So let's pause that chronograph. Let's get this back up. Let's move these hands out the way. So I've noticed the sub-dials at 9 and 3 have the hands which are slightly off. They're off by a tiny smidge, slightly to the left of the 12th marker, and it is noticeable. I did reach out to HHX Watch, and I got a long response about acceptable tolerances and gaps in the gears. And so what this does tell me that there's a potential, if you were to order one, that you could also get one with the hands which are slightly askew. What I would do to counteract that is, depending on the dial color you want, I'd request to see a picture and to make sure the alignment of the one that you're purchasing is perfect. Personally for me, I think I could live with this. I don't think it's that difficult, especially considering everything else about the watch. But if you are very particular, and this is definitely something that's going to bug you until you don't get the confirmation from HHX Watch Store, then I would hold back, because the risk of them sending you one which is just slightly off is potentially there. But as I said, it's not too bad. It's not too obvious. 9 out of 10 times you're not going to notice it. But I know for some people, knowledge that it's off slightly can definitely hinder some people. But I still think the watch has plenty to offer. The case quality, for example, is extremely high end. Even the butterfly clasp is thick. It's solid, really well made. And it's probably the best type of butterfly clasp you can get out there. Now on wrist, this is something else entirely. The biggest appeal about the watch, ironically, could be the smaller size. You've got a downsized, large chronograph, but it still feels substantial on wrist. You still get a lot of that presence with that integrated bracelet. It still does stand out, but it's really well made for a smaller wrist, and it fits well on a smaller wrist. And there's a lot of impressive light play as a result of that linear brushing, those polished details, and that build quality should be coming through to you guys on camera, but in hand you definitely feel every inch of the watch has been made really well. Now the movement alone is also a big part of the watch. That alone costs £135, so it's around half the price of the watch. Now the watch is around £350, which, being honest, is not super amazingly cheap, but it is good and a justifiable price. So with all that being considered, it's something to look into, and it's still worth getting if you do really like this type of design, the dial colors, and the fact that this movement is being used. I still find this quite impressive, aside from the small misalignment that we get on the two sub dials. And I find it impressive because one thing, as I said at the start of this review on this watch, is the sizing, and also the execution is indeed ridiculous. So it is another well-made watch from the guys over at Eniton. So that's it from me today. Drop your thoughts below. Thank you for sitting through a longer video, and I'll see you on the next video.